All right, and with us on this week's show is a gentleman. His name is Theo Grimminger, and Theo is a contributor and content provider at both the GOAT District Fantasy Football Network and Roto Underworld / Player Profiler / The Breakout Finder. He's a new league mate of mine and Jerry's. And I got to ask you, Theo, man, so I know you do work with our man JD over at the GOAT District, who might be the nicest guy in all of the fantasy and dynasty content space. And then you work with Matt Kelly, who's a guy in the dynasty and fantasy football space. So what is it like being on two separate dynamics like that? I know Matt gets kind of a bad reputation behind the scenes. I've heard he's a good dude. But first of all, thank you for joining us and welcome to the show.
I'm excited to be here. I love the WarZone, and I'm happy to talk a little football with you guys. Yeah, I think both Roto Underworld and also the GOAT District. There's some great people over there, and it's great having opinions on both sides. And this time of year, everybody's just cranking with the draft coming up, free agency still cranking, and it's a great time of year to be a fantasy football guy.
100%. And I know you do more written content type stuff over at Roto Underworld, and you're more of a podcast co-host. You're the most regular of regulars over at the GOAT District. So we can find you in all mediums. We can find writing. We can find podcast work. So check out Theo everywhere. His Twitter handle is the OG Fantasy Football. And the way that he has it written is really cool because you see his name in there, Theo G. I think it's awesome. It's very Jerry, why can't you be that creative?
Because I'm just not. I was just born without it. That's why I chose to be a Lions fan too. Stupid and not creative.
And not creative. Well, I tell you who is creative is two of Theo's co-writers and people over at Roto Underworld. We had Cody Carpentier on a couple of weeks ago with me and Dallas over on the Rookie Rundown show, and I'm trying to get Josh Larkey booked at some point in the near future, so definitely great content coming out from Roto Underworld and Player Profiler. Now, Theo is in this most recent startup Jerry and I got roped into. It's high dollar-ish, if you will, to tight end premium. We have to start two tight ends. It's 1.75 per reception for the tight ends, and it's super flex. Theo, how is your team going in this league so far? Yeah, I think he's muted. He pulled a Jerry.
He did pull a Jerry.
I think he's having some audio difficulties. We can't hear you right now, sir.
Talk to me about your team, Randy.
Well, we'll talk about my team for a minute while Theo rejoins us on this. You know, man, I took draft picks. You know, my first overall pick was a quarterback. Literally the first 7 picks of the show were quarterbacks. And it was kind of crazy that it was like literally 1 through 7 was.
1 through 8, actually.
Well, I was the 8th pick, but that's my point is that I kind of got in there at the last second. And we have Theo back with us. All right, Theo, welcome back, my friend.
Can you guys hear me now?
We can hear you now.
There we go.
Okay, perfect, yeah.
So we were talking about your team with the 2 tight end premium, must start 2 tight ends. Tell us about your team and what you've done so far.
Well, I was excited to get Christian McCaffrey where I did at the 109, which is a little lower than I anticipated he would go. And then I was also happy to get Justin Jefferson, who I have as a top 5 dynasty wide receiver. Quarterback-wise, I'm happy with my QB1. I have Matt Stafford, which I think I can get by with. And then QB2-wise, I got Derek Carr, who I still have as a QB2. So I was not disgusted with that pick. So I like the way my team's coming along. Tight end wise, I ended up with Cole Kmet, which is not so good for this format, but hopefully he's serviceable. And then I went with both Browns tight ends, Austin Hooper and Hunter Bryant, and I'm hoping for a little Blake Jarwin, comeback tour. So I think I can get by a tight end as well. So I'm not hating my team. There's a lot of really talented owners in the league, and I think it's going to be a competitive one.
No, I agree. And Jerry, what's your team look like from the tight end position? I know I sniped you on Hawkinson.
Yeah, I didn't love that. So I was in a pickle because we started this right as all of the Deshaun Watson news was coming out. So I got stuck at 107, and I thought about it, but I didn't want to risk it. He ended up falling to the third because I think we all sort of didn't want to touch it. Friend of the show, Matt Dent, ended up taking him there. I went with Trevor Lawrence. Well, I took the 101 at least. It's a pretty standard Jerry team. Trade down, accumulate picks, punt the first year, try and get a base of young guys, and just sort of let everybody else fight it out. I took a couple older guys hoping that I can, whoever ends up in third place or fourth place or on the bubble for the playoffs can come calling for Julio Jones or Ezekiel Elliott. But for the most part, super young. DJ Chark, DK Metcalf. I mean, Joe Mixon's 24, but Randy thinks he's 108. It's not a great team, but it never was going to be. I have 4 first-round picks next year. Productive struggle. It's my MO every single year. A lot of teams draft to win the first year, so I always pivot. I will. And listen, nobody can be mad. I'm giving you, my buy-in for the first year. It's okay. I don't hate it. I don't love it. We'll see. Right now, I'm picking a whole bunch of just dog crap for the most part because we're down. It's slim pickings. We're off in the Arizona desert, and there's tumbleweeds rolling around. I took Todd Gurley, if that tells you how bad it is.
He's unemployed. He's unemployed.
Yeah.
I don't think he qualified for a STEMI.
No,
he is
Darrell Henderson was my pick before then, so it's not been great.
This is the time of the draft where I absolutely love drafting. Like, I've created a full list of names that I'm just absolutely loving right now. So you must start 2 tight ends. And I went with Jerry's boy, TJ Hawkinson, and then I went with 2 former teammates. I went with Gerald Everett and Tyler Higbee. No Gerald Everett in LA should mean more volume for Tyler Higbee. Now, will he ever get back to that magical run that he had at the end of 2019? Maybe, but will he be the drizzling shits like he was last year? Hopefully not. Hopefully just somewhere in the middle. A nice, serviceable top 10 tight end, and then a guy that, one thing you will always find about me and this show is that I walk it like I talk it. I said that on a bonus podcast I did about free agency solo a couple weeks ago, I thought Gerald Everett was the biggest gainer of value in Dynasty across all of this. I don't think anyone raised their value more, especially in tight end premium, than Gerald Everett. Russell Wilson is needing another weapon. Tyler Lockett is not getting any younger. DK Metcalf is great, but I don't think he's ever going to be a volume monster. And we've seen Russ make tight ends out of crumb bums and shoe clerks, Jerry. Guys like Jacob Hollister, guys like Will Dissly. And if you can get a premium athlete in there, I think he was a second-round draft pick of the Rams in McVay's first year. Man, if I can get anything out of that dude, I think that's a monster. And I got a couple other tricks up these sleeves. I do have the 103 and the 104.
Well, preview us with one of them.
What's that?
Give us a preview. Come on now.
Here's the thing. I don't know. Right now, my best running back is Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
You don't like showing your cards. I like to show one every once in a while to fool people.
I have no problem. Telling you that right now, I think the 103 will definitely be a running back. I think it will be whoever doesn't go with the 102. I have the owners pegged at the 102 as Team RB, and I will take the different. I may take both. So let's say, our friends Dan and JD, we're all friends with Dan and JD from the GOAT District. They have the 102. I know you're going Trevor Lawrence at the 101. Let's say for hypotheticals, Najee Harris goes 102. Then if I like where the running backs go, I may double tap ETN and Javonte Williams. If there's a quarterback that I really love, even though I don't need them because I've got Joe Burrow, Carson Wentz, and I still think Sam Darnold gets a starting job somewhere. But I can't. At this point, if I absolutely love in this format, again, 2 tight end must start 2. I've played in this format before. You think 2 quarterback or super flex leagues, you think the talent dries up there real quick. Wait until you start flexing 2 tight ends in there. It gets ugly in a hurry. So I honestly don't know. I'll make that determination on the clock. I may trade back. I don't know. I don't know if there'll be time, Jerry, but I will certainly keep these people abreast in round 17 of this draft, and we are going to take a quick break. All right, and we're back from our break. Now, are you guys ready to play a game, Jerry?
Well, I mean, it depends what it is. The last time you set me up for this, I had to call my wife. She had to pick me up. It was a bad time.
Well, last time we did
I've said
this,
too much. I've said too much.
You wound up with a new Tinder profile. And then, Theo, we're going to make it super easy for you because you are a guest. So here's what we're doing. We're smack dab in the middle of a startup ourselves, and we're also smack dab in the middle of rookie season. So what we're going to do is I took DLF Superflex ADP from March. Now, it's not Superflex tight end premium, so you got to keep that in mind. But we're going to compare tight ends to tight ends, quarterbacks to quarterbacks. I'm not throwing you guys a curveball and making you guess between a running back and, say, a quarterback. So what we're going to do is you guys are going to get 6 questions each, and then we're going to discuss this after we do so. In the event of a tie, I have a tiebreaker question at the end, and we will play by Price is Right rules. What is Price is Right rules? It's the closest to the answer without going over. That is Price is Right rules. Yes, Jerry, you can go $1, but you could actually go to 101. So we're going to jump into this game. This first segment we're going to do rookies versus a veteran ADP, and we're going to stick with players in rounds 1 through 6 of startup ADP. So I'm going to let our guest go first. Theo, are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, here we go. Who has a higher ADP in DLF March 2021 startup ADP? Is it Russell Wilson or is it Trevor Lawrence?
I'm going to go with Trevor Lawrence.
That is one incorrect for our guest. According to DLF March ADP, Russell Wilson is the 11th player off the board in a Superflex startup. Trevor Lawrence is the 12th player off the board in a Superflex startup per our friends at the DLF. Jerry, what do you think about that?
I think that's dumb. I'm with Theo. How old is Russell Wilson? 32?
32?
I mean, granted, he could play for a couple more years, don't get me wrong. I mean, Trevor Lawrence is landing in Urban Meyer's system, supposedly, which I do think is going to work out. And he's 22. So let's say this man hits, which is all likelihood, probably a pretty good possibility. You can get 8 years out of somebody safely. Russell Wilson has not been the same that he has been. I don't know. That's just I don't see the upside to it. I get it if you're trying to win this year, maybe, but in a vacuum with a 22-year-old prospect of his nature, and their trade values are not going to be even close to the same. I don't know. I'm with Theo. I would have easily thought that was Trevor Lawrence. Randy,
well,
you like to play devil's advocate.
No, I don't. Not when it comes to Russell Wilson over Trevor Lawrence. Now, you took him with the 101 in this recent startup we keep referencing, and Russell Wilson went with the 202. So there was, half a round in between the two. I'm with you guys.
But yeah.
I would much rather take Trevor Lawrence. We've seen Russell be a top 12 or a QB1 like 9 years in a row or something, but he's 32. And I would much rather, I don't know, this is one of those weird shiny new things syndromes, but I am going to lean with Trevor Lawrence as well. All right, Jerry, are you ready for your first one?
Oh, yeah.
All right, we're going to go running backs this time. So, who is higher in March 2021 DLF ADP? Antonio Gibson or Najee Harris?
I'm going to say Najee Harris.
You would be incorrect. The ultra-surging Antonio Gibson is at 34, and Najee Harris is at 41. So they're about 7-8 picks apart from each other. I
don't hate it. I mean, I just sort of assume because he's a shiny new toy and he's the new thing that everybody loves, and the possibilities are endless where the man could land. But I mean, I don't hate it. I was wrong on Antonio Gibson. I have taken my crow. I have eaten that horrible, horrible sandwich that everyone likes to remind me about. But yeah, it's close. I get it.
All right,
Yeah,
Theo.
that
What
one
about
does.
you? Are you a Gibson? Or are you a Harris?
Well, I like them both a lot, but I'm not surprised on that. I think Gibson's pretty locked in right now. It's a guy people really want, and I think he'll be very popular in both dynasty and redraft. And I think his role should grow a little bit in year two. The offense will be better, and I would imagine he gets a little more targets. I think J.D. McKissick will lose some, and I think they'll go a little bit more with Gibson. I think that's the way the offense will take off. With all due respect to McKissick, he's not Antonio Gibson, and I'm looking for big things out of Gibson.
Oh, I thought you were going to go full Ricky Bobby and I said with all due respect, which means I can say whatever I want. And JD McKissick, you absolutely suck. I would agree. Currently today, with what I know today, I would take Antonio Gibson, and here's why. I'm hoping that he can get that continued snap share to continue to rise, and that he can look like Christian McCaffrey did in this similar offense. Now, I know technically Norv Turner was the offensive coordinator in 2019, but his son was there, and Norv had 1 foot out the door. So I would love to see Antonio Gibson as a former wide receiver get that Christian McCaffrey-esque workload, especially in the passing game. And the best part is they brought in, he's not Jared Goff immobile, but Ryan Fitzmagic is never going to be concerned or confused with Lamar Jackson. So he will check the ball down quite a bit, and I think this is going to be a very creative offense. Obviously, I love Terry McLaurin. You got Logan Thomas there. They brought in Curtis Samuel. It's going to look a lot like the 2019 Carolina Panthers. And if Antonio Gibson gets 75% of that workload, that's a 300-point fantasy asset. This could change if Najee lands in a great spot like Pittsburgh or like Seattle. But for me, yeah, right now, today, I would take Antonio Gibson. So the score is 0-0 going into round two. All right, this one here is very tricky. I probably should have given this one to Jerry, but sorry, I'm going to give you a tough one. Justin Fields or Jalen Hurts, who has the higher ADP per DLF's March Super Flex startup data?
So I think that this one will be Justin Fields.
Ding, ding, ding. We have a winner. Justin Fields was going 22 per DLF. Jalen Hurts was going 27. So you're in a Superflex startup mock or ADP data. You're looking at both of those guys right around that 2-3 turn. Now, Jerry, of those two guys, who would you rather have? Would you rather have Fields or would you rather have Hurts? When you're not pulling a Jerry and you're on mute. And now Jerry has no audio. So I'll go back to you, Theo. What was your mindset? So you clearly said Fields over Hurts. What was your thought process?
I think people are more into Hurts in redraft than they are in Dynasty right now because of the longevity concerns. Does the new coaching staff, have confidence in him as a long-term quarterback there? I think he's going to do quite well fantasy-wise this year, and I think he's going to have a chance to win that job long-term. But I think that the Dynasty community is a lot more into Justin Fields as a potential, top 5 pick this year, landing in a spot that just loves him than Hurts with the new coaching staff and, potentially another quarterback coming in to challenge him down the road. He dodged a bullet this year when they traded down, but I think that, people want a player that they view as a starter long term.
All right, Jerry, same question. Hurts?
For the love of all that is good, tell me you can hear me right now.
You sound beautiful.
Good God. All right. So I unplugged my mic like a moron, and then I muted it when I brought it back. Anyway, regardless, pulling a Jerry, we're off the rails. It's a shit show. Listen, you know I'm about Justin Fields, and I know you're not exactly about Justin Fields. I just like him better. I did not like Jalen Hurts as much at Alabama. I didn't really love him that much at Oklahoma. You look at the things that Oklahoma quarterbacks could do. It was win the Heisman, Jalen Hurts didn't do that. He started looking very good the first couple of games, and then he started getting into the meat and potatoes of his season. He didn't repeat it. He's good. He should be in good shape. I just like Justin Fields better. Justin Fields was an elite high school quarterback prospect. He goes to Georgia, a place that has had quite a few good quarterbacks, looking at you, Matthew Stafford. And then he transfers, not because he couldn't handle it there, not because he was going to go to a mid-tier MAC school or Sun Belt. No, the guy goes to Ohio State. He transferred up. And then he takes them to the national championship game and just absolutely dominated Clemson. Yes, he looked rough against Alabama, but I don't want to surprise anyone that's listening. Alabama does that to people. They are cyborgs. I'm about Justin Fields. And it doesn't help that today was the Justin Fields national holiday of 2021. His pro day was today. So everyone got their sweatpants a little too tight today about him. But I'm excited for his prospects. And I understand the Jalen Hurts love. I get it. I just prefer Fields.
Well, I'm not the biggest fan of either. Now, I don't dislike either. Don't hear what I'm not saying. But here's the thing. If Philadelphia could have gotten to the Zach Wilson spot, Jalen Hurts would be a backup right now. And here's the thing. People will tell you who they are. Listen to them. Howie Roseman and the owner of the Eagles, I'm drawing a blank on his name right now, they have this young man fitted for a toe tag. And as much as we all may like Jalen Hurts in the Dynasty and fantasy community, and you know what? The fans are probably going to like him too. Here's the thing. He is being handed a hot one. A mediocre offensive line, no weapons. They traded back. Maybe they get him a wide receiver, but maybe they do something crazy and draft like a rush end. They need help on defense. Maybe they go a cornerback. They need a lot of help on defense. This is a team that was ravaged by salary cap cuts because they had to do this. Now they do have, I think it's 3 first-round picks over the next 2. Actually, it could be 3 next year, depending on the Carson Wentz deal. That's what it was. So here's the thing. I think Jalen Hurts has to ball out of his mind in an offense with a coach that was not built for him. I felt like if Jalen Hurts has a great 2021, it's because Jalen Hurts is a great quarterback, not because he was set up for success. Now, let's look at the opposite side. Justin Fields, what's he going to have? He's going to have the draft capital. He's going to go no later than number 8 to Carolina. If he goes to number 8 to Carolina with Matt Rule and Joe Brady, it's a rocket ship. You think the 4.40 did something for his draft capital? Mr. Wait till he goes to Carolina and it's off to the races. Worst case scenario, he goes to Denver and winds up with those weapons and Pat Shurmur, who made Daniel Jones look so much better as a rookie than he did as a sophomore. So for me, you have the draft capital aspect, the fact that I feel like the guy's more wanted. I'm going to go also with Justin Fields. Now, Jerry, I have a very, very interesting one for you. Are you ready?
Yep, fire away.
Okay, here we go. Carson Wentz or Trey Lance. Who went higher in March DLF Superflex Startup ADP?
Before I answer the question, who would you take?
Get the hell out of here! I'm taking Carson. taking Carson Wentz.
Okay, that's what I thought you were going to say.
Here's the thing. I believe in what I saw. As bad as Carson Wentz played last year, at the time of his benching, in spite of all of his interceptions, in spite of all of his fumbles, through 13 weeks, he was the QB 12 on the season. He was a QB 1 in spite of all that. And now we're going to give him Michael Pittman, T.Y. Hilton, Paris Campbell, Jonathan Taylor, a top 5 offensive line in the league, and a head coach that made Phillip Rivers, who we were sending out to the glue factory this time last year. We were putting that man out to stud, and we know he can, 15 kids later. We were putting that man out to stud, and Frank Reich managed to get 4,100 yards out of him, 24 touchdowns, and 11 interceptions. And now I got the band back together. For me, this reminds me of The Godfather. If you've ever seen the cinematic classic, The Godfather. Carson Wentz feels like Johnny Fontaine. Frank Reich feels like The Godfather, like where he slaps him and says, "Be a man." And, Tom Hagen is Chris Ballard. He sends Chris Ballard to go get the deal done to make sure that Johnny Fontaine gets the deal he needs. Dude, this is the Godfather. So for me, I'm on Carson Wentz. But Jerry, you didn't answer the question. Who
I'm
has a
also on
better
Carson Wentz,
ADP?
but I don't think Carson Wentz has the better ADP. I would guess it's Trey Lance, but I'm with you for all the things that you said. Trey Lance has me a little trepidatious. I get that the upside is there. I was extremely mobile quarterback like him is something that makes elite quarterbacks. And he's going to have draft capital. He should end up in a favorable situation. But for all the reasons you just said, I mean, Phillip Rivers was serviceable. Carson Wentz was a QB1, and it was a absolute and utter disaster last year with crumb bums and shoe clerks at wide receiver. It's getting better. I like Indianapolis is a functioning organization. So I like him better. I think Trey Lance is probably a round ahead of him in ADP, maybe more.
All right, well, we're tied 1-1. Yes, you are correct. Trey Lance went 45 in DLF ADP, Carson Wentz 51. So you're correct, about a half a round apart, right there on that 4-5 turn. Theo, you heard my 2 cents on Carson Wentz. But by the way, Trey Lance is currently, and I know it won't be the most popular opinion, he's my QB2 in the class today. I know that sounds like blasphemy for some, but I think he's got the athletic upside. I just like the fact that he come from a small school. He called his own offenses, his own protections at the line of scrimmage. He's played under center, I think, more than anybody else in this class. So for those reasons, I like him, but I'll make my final rankings upon draft day. What about you, Theo? Between these two, who would you have taken?
I would have guessed Lance. I think it's a draft capital thing, and I think that people are just down on Carson Wentz. I think it's a great opportunity for Wentz to have a bounce back season. He's going to have, like you said, a much, much better offensive line, much, much better weapons, and a coaching staff that views him as the next step to help him get to a Super Bowl. So there's a lot to like about Carson Wentz having a comeback season, but I'm with you. I think Lance has the tools. I think Lance is going to have the draft capital. He's got the tools. He's got the size. He's got the athleticism. And from all accounts, a big arm. And I think that he's going to have a chance to land in a good spot. So short term, Wentz, but I think that the community is making the right decision here with the Lance pick. I think he's a fine value.
All right, we have a tie score. It's 1-1 after 2 rounds each. All right, Theo, got another tough one for you. So we have this class is at least consensus. I don't think too many people are going to buck this, but we got Jamar Chase. The class is 101 of the wide receivers. You might get a little pushback for Smith or Waddle or whomever versus DJ Moore. Who went higher in March DLF ADP?
So I'm a fan of both. I'm going to go with Chase here. I'm going to go with Chase. I think.
And you've taken a 2-1 lead in the March DLF startup ADP. Jamar Chase going 56 overall, DJ Moore 57. So they were literally neck and neck with each other. So who would you choose? So if the consensus is this close, do you have a preference?
I love DJ Moore, but I would probably go with Jamar Chase. He's my wide receiver 1 in this class. I think he is an absolute stud. I think he can be an AJ Brown. DJ Moore, I'm hopeful that he's going to absorb some of the 90 targets that Curtis Samuel is vacating. And we've just kind of been waiting for that monster year out of DJ Moore. It just hasn't happened yet. Last year was a disappointing year. He had a couple of really good games, but it was a disappointing year, whether you took him in Dynasty or redraft. And he's been a very productive player for being so young. But I envision Jamar Chase as a guy who could be wide receiver 1 overall in this league. And I don't see that from DJ Moore right now. I see DJ Moore as a guy who's going to be a fringe wide receiver 1. And I think that's great. But I think Chase has the upside he's got a scary upside to me. I'm taking him in consideration at the 103 this year in non-super flex Dynasty. He's right behind the 2 running backs, and I might take him at 102. I love the guy. I think he's great. He had the early breakout age. He dominated NFL cornerbacks his entire career at LSU, and he's to me he's a can't miss wide receiver.
All right, Jerry, DJ Moore or Chase for you?
I think I'm in the same boat. It's DJ Moore has been lacking in touchdowns. He's only had 4 both of his years in the league. I am excited about Matt Rule and Joe Brady though, and should they get a quarterback, if Justin Fields falls or Trey Lance or somebody, and they can sort of boost that profile, because Teddy Two Gloves is just not going to do it. He's never going to be able to be conducive to a wide receiver's production to the level that Jamar Chase can achieve really in a lot of places. Now, if he lands in Cincinnati, though, which I don't really think he's gonna, and he has to fight all of that with T. Higgins, I am not going to love it, because I do love T. Higgins, and I think that's 2 great wide receivers going at it, and I think they're just going to eat each other's production. But that's, playing in ifs and buts. I agree. I'm with you. I think Jamar Chase does have a higher ceiling, and it hurts me to say that, because DJ Moore is a guy that is just highly productive every year, still only 23 years old, and it seems like the community is sort of pushing him to the side. Like he's just, he's vanilla ice cream, and yet he's a dude that gets 1,200 yards. I mean, he saw, a 20 reception dip from his first year to his second year, and he still had more yards. So he's learning, he's growing, and it's awesome. We just need Teddy Two Gloves to get the F out. It just for all of us, and selfishly for my own rosters, which is the most important thing, of course.
I don't think we're even having this as a conversation if DJ Moore had ever had more than 4 touchdowns in a season. In his first 3 years, he's had 2, 4, and 4. Justin Jefferson had more than that as a rookie. Now, to Jerry's point, the guys had 1,175 and 1,193 yards in back-to-back seasons. So if he had more touchdown points on his PPR record, he would have been easily a wide receiver 1 the last 2 years. I'm going DJ Moore. I'll take the bird in the hand. I know Jamar Chase has got a tremendous amount of upside. Now, if DJ Moore were, say, 25 or 26 versus the 21-year-old Jamar Chase, different question for a different day. But I'm going to be the odd man out. I'm going to say DJ Moore ever so slightly, because I don't think we've even scratched the surface of a guy who's already basically given us 2 1,200-yard seasons. All right, Jerry, are you ready for your next one?
Oh, yeah.
All right, going quarterback again. The ultra-popular, potentially 103 overall to the San Francisco 49ers, Mac Jones, or maybe DJ Moore's potential new quarterback in Sam I Am Darnold, Mr. Mono himself. Who is going higher in DLF ADP Superflex Startup?
The answer is Mac Jones, because people don't love
you are
Sam
currently
Darnold.
in a hole. You're now down 1-2. Sam Darnold was player 72 off the board. Mac Jones player 74 off the board.
I don't believe that for one damn second.
I have screenshots. I have screenshots. That's why I didn't tell you guys.
You have photoshopped screenshots is what you got. You're a cheater, and nobody trusts you, and nobody believes your shenanigans.
I mean, I'm going to rep for our friends Ryan McDowell and Shane. Shane from formerly of the DFF at Shane is the worst on Twitter. No, you can go over there for $8 a month or $50 for the year. You too can see that the last and most recent DLF mock draft ADP data says that Mr. Sam Darnold went, and to put that in perspective, I got Sam Darnold in like the 10th or 11th round of this draft we're doing right now. So
yeah, you wouldn't trade me because you didn't want to let Sam Darnold fall, I believe was what the text said, because you're a real son of a bitch. That's why. But to your defense and to the defense of the DLF ADP, listen, Adam Gase is a horrible, horrible cancer that just rains down hellfire upon fantasy owners and dynasty owners. We saw Ryan Tannehill and Sam Darnold have pretty similar stat lines, pretty similar production. And then we've seen what Ryan Tannehill had. Yikes. Speaking is tough. What Ryan Tannehill has done since he left that cancerous black hole that is Adam Gase's offense. I am excited to see the man a little bit. I do want to see him outside of that, but that's just something. I don't know, because people love rookies, and I know he didn't have, he overthrew a couple passes in his pro day, and Twitter loves to just make mountains out of molehills. The dude was highly productive. The dude looked good at Alabama, and I know you don't have the children of the poor like Zach Wilson had at BYU and Trey Lance had at North Dakota State. You have the creme de la creme, top shelf, at Alabama, and he had all of it. But the man looked good, and he did everything that you could ask of him. I am flabbergasted that Sam Darnold is ahead of him in ADP. Never would have guessed it.
Yeah, I don't think anybody would have. What about you, Theo? Are you a Sam Darnold guy at all at this point?
I'm not. I've seen enough from Darnold. I think he's an NFL quarterback. I don't think he's anything to get excited about. I'm not so sure that he would have a Ryan Tannehill like resurgence if he got a job somewhere else. And I'm actually surprised as well that that the Dynasty community is not taking Mac Jones ahead of him. I don't think people are as excited about Mac Jones as the other rookies. I think that's pretty clear. But he is a lock first rounder, and I'm a little bit surprised about this one. And I will say this: Jones looks a lot better running. I know we're not supposed to get excited about these pro days, but when he ran, he looked. This is some guy that everybody said was going to be a 5'1" guy, and he was clearly like a 4'8" guy. I think that was kind of reassuring to see. I'm a little bit surprised at this one. I think that this will change over the next couple of weeks. I think this one will correct itself right after the draft, and it'll correct itself sharply.
Yeah, I'm with you guys. I think because this was March, and I don't know when in March they took this temperature, this gauge of ADP, if you will, because it had to have been early March when people, hadn't seen the Mac Jones pro days. I think when the ADP data from DLF comes out for April, it's going to sing a much different song. So just because it was there now, but that's why I gave it to Jerry. I knew it was one that he would get wrong, and I would be able to give our guest an early lead. So we're going to take another quick break, and we're back. So all right, we have 6 more of these to go. We are going back to Theo. Theo is up 2-1. Theo, your next one is Kyle Pitts or TJ Hawkinson. Who is higher in ADP from our friends at the DLF for March?
Gosh, that's a really, really hard one. I'm going to go TJ Hawkinson.
You are not moving forward, sir. You still have 2 points. It's actually Kyle Pitts. He was going 20 picks ahead of TJ Hawkinson.
Wow,
Kyle Pitts going 63 overall. TJ Hawkinson 83. Hawkinson was actually the tight end 6 going behind Mark Andrews. I stand here before you guys befuddled, confused, and flabbergasted. Just unbelievable. If you listen to the show with any regularity, you know that Mark Andrews was on my all breakup team from back in February. I love TJ Hawkinson. There's so much less target competition for him in Detroit. And we'll see what happens, man. But I am going to go with TJ Hawkinson personally. Jerry, I saw you shaking your head.
I mean, I understand it. I get it because everybody loves new things. I would not make that choice. Honestly, I would take TJ Hawkinson. I don't know what you really needed to see, and I know that we've just lost Matthew Stafford, but who in the hell else is Jared Goff going to pass to? Because there is nothing. So I would definitely take Hawk.
All right. Well, I'm a big Hawk guy as well. Now, here's the thing: if Kyle Pitts goes to an Atlanta, or his head coach was a former tight end coach, or he goes to a real prolific offense, then maybe I'd consider it, but I don't know. I think this is the hype of draft season. So, all right, I'm going back to Jerry. I'm giving Jerry one of his absolute favorite players of all time. We're going to go David Montgomery or we're going to go Javonte Williams. Jerry, Monty or Javonte? Well, Jerry wants to think about it for a second. He's using his one filibuster. I think he's got his mute on again.
Yes, he does.
He is. He's having some static issues over there.
Yeah, I'm going to flip the computer off of the desk in a second.
Well, we'll make it through. Just keep your answers short, and we recognize it.
The answer is David Montgomery. Just because I think
neither one of you guys want to take a lead. Javonte Williams, 71 overall. David Montgomery, 73 overall.
I mean, I understand why. The dude finished as RB6. We have no idea where Javonte Williams is going to go, and he's going to be the RB3 in this class, I would guess. Maybe RB2. I feel like Dynasty Twitter likes Javonte Williams much more than the NFL does, but we will see at the end of April. But I don't know. I get it again, but I don't agree with it.
All right. What about you, Theo? Are you surprised by that?
I'm actually not surprised at all about this one. I think that, like Jerry said, I think that the Dynasty community is head over heels over Javonte Williams right now. And I think David Montgomery, whether it's true or not, is kind of looked at as a compiler that had a great year last year, but he's not necessarily some long-term guy. I know a lot of people who are looking to flip David Montgomery this offseason. And I think that I think that this will hold up unless Javonte Williams has a very bad landing spot, and the perception is he's in a split. But I think that this one does not surprise me.
All right. Well, you are back up. I love this. I have done this in a way that I have really made you guys work for these points in this game here. So you have two wide receivers. Whoa. You have Kenny Golladay or Devonta Smith.
I will go Devonta Smith.
Man, I am stumping you guys left and right and center. Kenny Golladay was 82 overall. Devonta Smith was 84 overall. So they're obviously very close. This was March, so this would have predated Kenny Golladay signing with the Giants. So I guess there was maybe some optimism in there. Both of these guys going right at the end of the 7th round. Now, you seem to be really taken back by this.
I'm actually a little surprised by this one. I mean, I think that Golladay, he's past the age apex. Devonta Smith is going to be most likely the second wide receiver picked in this draft. He's going to have high draft capital. Whether you like him or not, you have to respect that draft capital. I'm a fan of his. I don't know if he would be my wide receiver too, but I do think he's going to be a very productive wide receiver in the NFL. Now, whether that's a wide receiver one, I don't necessarily think so. But again, Kenny Golladay is, with his age, the fact he's coming off of an injured season, and the fact that people were taking him based on him not being with any team at the time. I do not love the landing spot in New York. I know he should get a role, a sizable role, but I just don't see him being anywhere near wide receiver one this year, and I don't necessarily think he's going to be wide receiver one ever again.
Well, that's a bold statement. What about you, Jerry? Let's check the quality of this return.
What do we got? Are we getting anything?
A little bit of static. We'll just have to make do.
All right. I'm with Theo, man. Kenny Golladay is a sell. Kenny Golladay is going to be a sell for every single reason the man just said. He's past that age threshold. He's banged up. He's never really been all that productive. If we're just going to be truthfully honest, he had a ton of touchdowns one year when the David Blows and Chase Daniels were playing quarterback. No. And I'm not even the biggest Devonta Smith fan in the world. I don't love little tiny guys that run around. Now, granted, he's a bad mother when he is on the field, and I like him as a prospect, but I don't get it. I don't know. That's not even close for me, in truth. And that's as a person that doesn't even love Devonta Smith. So I don't know. I don't agree. I have understood some of the things that we have said today. That one, I thought better of you, community. I am disappointed. I am upset at you for that one.
I'm actually going to be. I'm going to give you two takes.
Okay, well, what's the lie? Give us the lie first.
Well, Jerry, remember, I'll tell you the truth one time. I will lie to you. But I will say this. I like Kenny Galladay in 2021. I think this is the clapper. I think this is Jason Garrett going out and getting his clasher on the outside, the way that Dez played for him in Dallas. They have the dual tight ends. They're going to be using part-time Kyle Rudolph to augment the ever-droppable, not like in your team, but he just drops a lot of footballs, and Evan Ingram. You got Darius Slayton as your speed guy. You got, it's a very, very good offense. So he's going to get a lot of one-on-one, and when you get a lot of one-on-one coverage as a big wide receiver like him, you're going to get some jump ball opportunities. And because of that, I think he's going to have some splash plays. But in Dynasty, yeah, I'm with you guys. Give me the rookie. Give me the guy who's going to have that first-round draft capital versus the guy who just got paid. I want the guy who's just about to get paid and not the guy who just got paid. Speaking of guys who just got paid, all right, I believe this one goes to Jerry. Now, Jerry, my man, Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp got paid this past offseason. He and Bob Woods both had their contracts redone versus a Big Ten beauty, big friend of the show, Kane Fasell's guy, Rashad Row the Boat Bateman. Who went higher in DLF ADP in March?
This is tough because I feel like a lot of people are super down on Cooper Kupp. But then Rashad Bateman is not really in the wide receiver one conversation for a lot of people. So you're a real son of a bitch for this one. I'm stumped, man. You know what? I am going to say Cooper Kupp because Matthew Stafford's there. I think maybe the community might have boosted it up a little. God, you turned your mic off too quick, which means I certainly got it wrong.
You got it right. Look
Cooper at Kupp, that.
Cooper Kupp, 90.
A broken clock is right twice a day.
We have a tie ball game. It's 2-2. Cooper Kupp, player 90 off the board. Rashad Bateman, player 93. So again, these are always going to be fairly close. I think the biggest gap to date was the Wentz versus Lance debate. But yeah, man, these guys are really, really close for me. I'm always going to go Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp, I couldn't love him more if his last name was Young, like me. He might as well be family for me at this point. For me, man, for Bateman to leapfrog Cooper Kupp in my personal rankings, he would have to land on a really good offense. There's a lot of mock draft data having him going to Baltimore. That's a negatory Ghost Rider. But if he winds up in a spot, I don't know, that would be perfect. Like Green Bay opposite of Devontae Adams, then I have to raise an eyebrow. But for me today, I'm going to go with Cooper Kupp because he's a guy that you can get at wide receiver 3 prices that legitimately 2 years ago in 2019 was the wide receiver 4 on the entire season, and that man got a quarterback upgrade. So for me, it's Kupp, not by a ton. But what about you, Theo? Kupp or Bateman?
So I'm a big Bateman believer, but I would go Kupp here. He's had 90 plus catches the last 2 years, and he's getting a huge quarterback upgrade. Like you said, he could finish as a wide receiver 1 this year, and he's in just a great situation. Now Bateman agreed Baltimore would be a bad spot, but I'll be interested to see where he lands. I think he's got a great profile, and I like him a great deal. So this is one that I think might correct itself and go Bateman's direction after the draft, despite all the positives with Kupp. But for me, it's Cooper Kupp right now. I think he's a great value in redraft and in Dynasty right now.
Yeah, I just think Cooper Kupp, even though he's 28, with the way that he plays the game, he feels like a solid 2 to 3 more years worth of, like I said, wide receiver 2 production that could be as high as wide receiver 1. So that's why I do it. It's kind of, yeah, go ahead.
I also believe he had a career low in touchdown receptions this past year. So if he would have just hit his average, he'd be way, way higher. It's the year was a poor year touchdown wise, but everything else was there. So I think Stafford, coming in there, Kupp might be the biggest beneficiary.
Yeah, it's either going to be Kupp or Tyler Higbee. We'll see how it shakes out. All right, Theo, your last one. We have a tie ball game, 2-2. We have Melvin Gordon or Kenneth Gainwell? DLF March ADP.
I'm going Gainwell.
You will not improve your score. Melvin Gordon.
Really? I thought for sure that was going to be Kenny too.
Melvin Gordon, player 101. I'm sorry, player 107 off the board. Kenneth Gainwell, player 111. So there's 4 spots difference. Me personally, I like Melvin Gordon a lot in redraft this year. They let Phillip Lindsay go to the Houston Texans, and I think he's going to have a nice little season. We'll see what they do in the draft if they bring anybody in. But in the short term, I like Melvin Gordon, but obviously long term, you want Kenny Gainwell. So what about this caught you off guard? And Jerry, your static is back.
For me, I agree with you. I think that Melvin Gordon is certainly a value right now. No Lindsey around there. He's kind of last man standing, and the offense, should be average with the potential to get a little better. But I just think that Gainwell is a player that a lot of people like. I think he's a lot of people's running back 4. He's got great receiving ability, and he's somewhat of a hot name right now. So I am a little surprised that the community is taking an older running back over a guy who's, possibly a day 2 pick in the NFL draft and late first rounder in standard rookie drafts.
And what about you, Jerry?
Do I need an old running back to die on my roster? Because if I do, then I'll take Melvin Gordon. But that's a stupid play, and it is a extremely descendant asset. No, not even close.
Yeah, I'm with you. If I'm keeping Melvin Gordon, if I'm choosing this, Jerry mentioned earlier in the startup we're doing, he's doing productive struggle. I'm kind of just letting the draft come to me, and I'll be fielding a roster in September. I don't have to field one in March or in April. So for me, but if I was building a legit contender, or if I thought I could get Melvin Gordon on a contender with a 17-game season, as fragile as the running back position is in fantasy football, Melvin Gordon's one of those guys I would love to have stashed on the back end of a roster because he might be a plug-and-play matchup RB2 a lot of times this year. I think he's going to be a name you hear a lot in DFS as like a cheap a cheap play on a week-in, week-out basis. All right, Jerry.
I think that's fine, but that was such a specific situation where he was good, and that, I mean, you're really shoehorning the possibilities of him being successful. And every other situation, he's just an old busted-ass running back that's going to die on your roster and give you no value in return.
Still a contract year. And you're right. But I'm just merely saying from a strategy standpoint, if I'm trying to win, or if I can find someone who feels about him the way that you apparently do, I'm going to try to move my, can I move a third this year and a third next year? Can I get him for 2/3? Maybe. I don't know. All right, Jerry, here's your last chance to win this game. Here you go. You have Julio Jones or Rondale Moore.
Rondale Moore. Shit. Okay. I mean, I definitely prefer Rondale Moore for exactly the same argument I just said about Melvin Gordon. But did the community take him over? I'm going to say they did. I am going to have trust in them. I'm going to put all of my trust into the Dynasty community that they will not take old-ass Julio Jones, who, for all the situations, you shut up. Really?
Jerry wins the game 3-2.
Good.
Julio Jones, player 98 off the board. Rondale Moore, player 97 off the board. You don't get any closer than that. This was the Jamar Chase, DJ Moore trap all over again. I mean, for me, this is a slam dunk. I know there's some concerns over Rondale Moore being 5'7". I really don't care. There are literally offenses in this league that if you put Rondale Moore in that offense, I could see me putting him as my wide receiver 3 in this class. I don't care. Yak has no height requirement. He's got I'm going to call it 4.3 speed. I know the unofficial was 4.29. I know Theo's buddies over at Roto Underworld, they'd round that up 5/100ths of a tick. So that would make him a 4.34 guy. That's plenty fast enough for me. I love that yak. And like this guy on Green Bay, we mentioned Green Bay earlier, monster. I would love to see him with the Colts. So what about you, Theo? Now, Jerry had to talk himself into it, but Theo or Julio, who are you taking?
I'm taking Rondale Moore. I think Rondale Moore is going to be a very productive player in this league. Julio Jones could have one last great year, but I think that he's obviously, getting a little older, and I agree with you. I think Rondell Moore is going to be a really exciting player in this league. I'm hoping that he lands on an offense that uses him creatively. And people can get concerned about the height. I mean, just watch the guy play. The guy's unbelievable. And like you said, there was the 40. His vertical leap was ridiculous. All of the athletic traits check off. He's a gym rat. The videos of him squatting are legendary. He's strong as an ox, and I think he's going to be a really exciting player. I love that Green Bay fit, like you said. I think the Packers fans are starving for the Packers to go and get a free agent or a draft pick wide receiver. He would be a fantastic fit for them. And like you said, I think there's a number of offenses where he could come in and elevate them and elevate a lot of quarterbacks as well.
Well, as much as it bums me out, Jerry has won the rookie versus veteran ADP game. I will go ahead and ask you guys the tiebreaker question that I had in case of a tie. So I'll start with you, Theo. Where do you think, per DLF, March Super Flex Startup ADP, where do you think Zach Wilson was going?
Where was just to refresh me? Where
Nope,
was Lance on?
Nope, you just got to give us a number.
Gosh, I would say somewhere in the 50s.
Okay, so give me a number between 51 and 59 then.
52.
All right, Jerry?
I was thinking sort of right in that range too. So give me 62. I'll say almost around later.
Well, technically, neither one of you guys win the Showcase Showdown because you both went over, but Theo was closer. It was 49. 49, right there at the 501. And I think that's going to be right. Here's the thing. We were talking about this in one of our group chats earlier today. And remember, if history repeats itself, which it often does, there's going to be 2 superstars in this quarterback class, 1 to 2 serviceable quarterbacks in this class, and 1 that's a bust. And it's not his fault that he's going to be a Jet, but I do like what Joe Douglas is doing. I do like Robert Saleh as a head coach. I like the fact that Matt's in Green Bay, but Mike LaFleur is going to be running his own version of the Kyle Shanahan offense. I think all that bodes well. But I get awful nervous. I did like the fact that he came in a little bit heftier than I thought he would be. He came in at 6'2", 215. And I think that was a good thing. But speaking of good things, man, Theo, you were a good thing popping by for your first time here in the Dynasty WarZone. What do you want these people to know? I know you're on, like I said, we can't dub you an official co-host of the GOAT District podcast, but I know you're on there fairly often because I'm a listener. And tell us about all your work, man.
Yeah, you guys can look for my writing on Player Profiler and BreakoutFinder.com. I'm doing the waiver wire article this year on Player Profiler, which I'm excited about. And I'll have a couple of draft write-ups and some team previews coming up as well. And then, look for me on Twitter at the OG Fantasy. And I'm a regular player in FFPC and NFFC. My team name is usually Grimminger, which is my last name. And I'm excited as hell to be on the WarZone. I had a blast with you guys. And hats off to Jerry for taking me down in the 3-2. But those were some really, really good mental exercises, and I enjoyed that.
Well, that's the point, man. We're not here to be right. We're here to get it right. We're here to get it right for the listeners and the Dynasty consumer, because we may think one thing and ADP may say another thing, but that's why we talk it through. And rankings should be updated fairly often, because a lot of times the Mac Jones one, well, it was a great one. There's no way if we were to do consensus ADP today, but you got to keep your finger on the pulse of what's going down. And speaking of which, next week, this podcast will be Jerry and a mystery co-host, because I will not be here. I will be on vacation. It'll be Jerry. It may be Dr. Kyle. It may be Matty Big Chest. It may be Kyle and Jake from the FF SmackDown. Hell, you never know. Theo could come back and just host this thing for me. But I will be taking a vacation next week. You will not hear me on the Rundown or the WarZone. But I'll be back the week after with my man Jerry. And Jerry, you got anything before we go home?
No, Dad's gonna let me out of the closet. I'm
to
going
death.
to have free range next week. I'm sure it'll be not safe for work, so definitely that will not be the episode to be listening at your desk. I'm just kidding, Randy. I will not burn this bad boy to the ground that fast.
Burn the ships.
In at least 2 weeks. If you take a 2-week vacation, we're cooked like a book, my friend.
Dude, if I took a 2-week vacation, I might as well just send this thing out on a Viking funeral. Well, speaking of heading out, on behalf of Theo, Jerry, and myself, remember, here at the Dynasty WarZone and the DWZ Football Network, we are just here to make the world a better place for fantasy football. We'll see you back here real soon. Thanks for tuning in, everybody.